Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. We are your home for Caribbean weather. It's great to see you on this Monday. It is Memorial Day in the U.S. and hope everyone's having a happy holiday and of course remembering the reason for the holiday. Coming up in our video, got a lot to talk about. We got a ton of wind across the area. It's really kicked up some fast moving showers, some heavier rain, and a lot of marine issues for today. Then we got to get into what's going to be happening midweek in the Northwest Caribbean and the Southern Gulf. A little bit of tropical shenanigans could be trying to develop early in the season. As always, love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments section below what's been happening in your area. You got a question, feel free to drop it down there as well. A great day to have all of that information in our information hub scrolling at the bottom of your screen because there are so many marine advisories today. Basically, if you live anywhere from, oops, I took it off. Let me bring up the 5-day forecast. Basically, if you live anywhere from the Bahamas all the way back down towards Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and the Antilles, you're under some kind of marine issue for today because the winds, they are howling today. Look at these wind gusts right now across portions of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. 30, 35 mile an hour breezes from St. Croix to Ponce, Aguadilla, from St. Thomas, Fajardo, Ponce, San Juan. We've had 30 plus mile an hour winds. Brisk showers coming along with this, the opportunity for some windswept rain, elevated sea conditions across the entire area. I can show you the live radar here out of Puerto Rico. Again, a few fast moving showers just west of Christiansted, few over St. Thomas, Culebra, Vieques areas, a couple of scattered showers eastern side of the island, Fajardo over towards Yabacoa, but the more concentrated rain for today will be on the western sides of Puerto Rico from Uti Alto towards Mayaguez. But again, everyone is going to see the strong winds. We have rip current risk statements. We have small craft advisories. Again, you'll find all of that information at the bottom of your screen. Over the mode of passage, scattered showers are briskly moving into places like Punta Cana and the DR. Not going to be as much concentrated rain today for Santo Domingo north and west, but a couple of scattered showers could develop there over the higher terrain and then work their way west on over towards Port-au-Prince, Haiti. But generally speaking, it'll be a little bit quieter on this Monday in those areas. That's not the case, though, for the rest of the Virgin Islands, especially on over towards the northern side of the Antilles. From Anguilla, St. Martin, St. Bart, Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Antigua, 25, 30, 35 mile an hour breezes for today. So it's kicking up the marine conditions there. Brisk showers and some locally heavy downpours from time to time. Let's take a look at some of the video that we got in. This is a windy St. Kitts and Nevis from the Rio King. I think he's done kind of one of those, artistic views of this, but you can clearly see the wind whipping in right now, blowing in some of those showers from time to time. Skies have been nice and clear, but from time to time we've also had some of those brisk moving showers. Appreciate the Real King sending in that video. If you want to as well, you can find the email address at the bottom of the screen. It's mymeteomundo@gmail.com. But look, it's going to be a wet, windy day across the entire Antilles. Guadeloupe, Dominica right now does have a flood watch in effect. 1 to 2 inches of rain there could lead to some ponding of roadways and some landslides and some swollen rivers. If you've had some of the fast moving showers that have added up to more than an inch of rain, let me know in the comments section below. Scattered showers will continue for places like Martinique and St. Lucia. When you get down to the Windward Islands, the moisture content's a little bit lower today. There's not as many marine issues, but again, you'll find some elevated sea conditions like St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Barbados has had a pretty nice day. We're trying to get some overcast skies and a few showers to develop over TNT. Still more isolated than anything. It's not going to add up to much in a lot of spots. We've had some rain today like Port-au-Prince or Port of Spain, excuse me. Just let me know in the comment section below. It's going to be another windswept dry day across the ABC Islands. Oranjestad today has already had a 37 mile an hour breeze, but this is an area devoid of any real chance for showers and storms. A few lightning strikes several hundred miles north, but that would be about it. Panama, Costa Rica, continue to see some wet weather across the area there. It's a break in the action across Nicaragua and most of Honduras, but it's good to start to see some rain beginning to evolve in the northern sides of Honduras. Portions of the Belize, especially inland, Guatemala included in that, Punta Gorda on up towards the Belize City, San Ignacio, trying to at least see a little bit of cloud coverage over Roatan. This is an area that is going to start to get some very active weather here. You notice the scattered showers and rumbles of thunder, all the lightning developing between between Merida and Cancun and Cozumel and Tulum. These spots of the Yucatan could see some extremely heavy rainfall later in the week with kind of what I mentioned could be happening in a tropical nature. Cayman Islands for today, gusty winds over Grand Cayman up to 25 miles an hour, a few passing showers and a rumble of thunder there. Across Jamaica, we're beginning to see a couple of isolated thunderstorms develop, mainly in interior, hillier sections of the parishes, Cambridge, south of Montego Bay, so kind of northern St. Elizabeth, southern sides of St. James, Westmoreland, Hanover parishes could get some showers. Southern coastline could see some rain, maybe as far east as Kingston, but if nothing else, some extra cloud coverage. But Hayes and Mandeville and Black River and Treasure Beach, there are red alerts in effect right now for the offshore waters of Morant and Pedro Bank for sea conditions up to 3 meters, around 9 feet swells or higher. So fishermen, please keep that in mind. Scattered showers and thunderstorms breaking out over Cuba at the hour, and then things are relatively quiet right now through portions of the Bahamas. A little bit of wind towards San Salvador, but you know, the bottom line is, again, looking at the bottom of your screen, there are a ton of marine warnings. There's a near gale warning in effect for the central Bahamas. Not a lot of shower activity, but a lot of windy conditions there, and that translates also to the southern sides of Florida and the Keys, where again, we're going to be watching for some interesting, much more active weather coming into these areas here as we move over the next couple of days. Okay, now we're going to get into the rest of the forecast tropically as well. So that's going to be my next headline to talk about. Could this potentially be an early start to the hurricane season? I'm going to bring on the marine forecast as we get into this, and you're going to see just elevated sea conditions in a lot of spots, building seas in many areas. Of course, you got your tide information here as well. So we're going to go through the models, all right, and we're going to break those down for you here. Going to start off with the GFS, but we're also going to look at the European model as well. Now, this might take, just because of the way I had to kind of produce this video today, it might just take a second for the model to fully load up here. So I'm going to kind of talk as this begins to develop. What we're looking at is a disturbed area beginning to develop in the Northwest Caribbean or the southern or southeast Gulf as we get into mid to late week. Regardless of any tropical development, and right now, we'll get into it more, but right now I don't see a lot on the board of any organized tropical activity, but what I do see is a very wet system moving through this area with copious tropical moisture being transported to the north, combining with a cold front coming off of the United States East Coast and making things very wet and stormy and blustery the next several days. So here's how we start to break things out. As we move through the remainder of today, it's still going to be pretty quiet. It's probably not until about Wednesday that we start to see any evolution of true tropical transported moisture getting north of the Caribbean. However, even between now and then, it's just going to start to get wetter in places like Central America and the Yucatan, potentially on over towards Jamaica and the Cayman Islands and portions of Cuba as well. Once we start to see this moisture get into the Gulf, that's when things could really start to get wet. Now, there is some differences in the longer global models, the GFS and the European in particular, as to how this evolves and where the heavier rain develops first. One note is, compared to maybe a few days ago, some of the heaviest rain is now developing a little bit farther west to begin with, so over portions of the central sides of the Gulf, but then back down into places like Cancun and Cozumel and Tulum, and maybe as far south as Belize City, and maybe the coastal Caribbean sections of Honduras and Nicaragua. So these spots could get wetter first, with significant rainfall. I'm talking inches of rain between now and the end of the week. And then eventually all of this does get pushed north into the east, over Cuba, over the Straits of Florida, including the Florida Keys and Southeast Florida, Miami, and the central and the northern sides of the Bahamas. And again, regardless of any true tropical development, right, getting a true low-level center of circulation, we are going to get general troughiness in this area with potentially just weak waves of energy in the lower levels, producing, again, ample amounts of rain throughout this area that will eventually spread on over towards Bermuda. And this time of the year, on these decaying cold fronts, when you have that moisture, that tropical transport, you can't ever rule out some kind of subtropical system trying to develop in the western Atlantic. So I have the question. That's why the Hurricane Center has started to begin to, bring on these their tropical outlooks beginning on May 15th, even before the start of hurricane season, because of the potential for earlier season development. But at this point in time, this looks like a sloppy rainmaker more than anything else. So let's take a look at what the models are showing right now. We'll begin with the European surface pressures. Nothing happening through about Friday, but as we head over the weekend and into early next week, you'll see that general trophy pattern that I'm talking about. The European model has shifted potentially some of the more developed areas of low pressure off of the Florida coastline, off the United States East Coast, and again, kind of within that zone of where the front begins to decay. So nothing quite organized here, but gets a little bit stronger as it pushes along that front with that moisture. It's something to continue to monitor here as we get into early next week. And again, this would be the official start of hurricane season on June 1st. The GFS model is a little bit more potent through portions of the Gulf and the Northwest Caribbean, but obviously is also not honing in on anything too significant at this point in time. You see a few broad areas here developing a little bit farther west and earlier relative to the European model, but in this environment, the GFS is known to have a cyclogenesis bias this time of the year. It tries to just spin things up too quickly and too prominently here. So there is that bias kind of inherent within the GFS model to continue to monitor. But there's that general trophiness again as well, just weak areas of disturbed weather. Now, if we take a snapshot of the vorticity or the spin in the atmosphere as of late Saturday, you see a little bit of activity here, western sides of Cuba. And again, if nothing else, that's a lot of lift in the atmosphere. So as this front moves to the south and we have the combination of those two features within that zone, I think we could have some 4, 6, 8 inches of rain from Cuba, South Florida, maybe even portions of the Bahamas for you guys as well. It's obviously going to elevate sea conditions. Now, regardless of that development, the easterlies are quite brisk right now. So all areas that have small craft advisories or warnings are likely to stay with that, and the waves are going to build farther west. And then you get the impacts of that front that could really elevate things back into the exposed waters of the Atlantic. So it is going to be a churned up forecast for a lot of our fishermen and our boaters. Central and eastern sides of the area, potentially only the far western sides could be a little bit quieter. But again, the thunderstorm activity now over Central America and portions of Quintana Roo is likely to be more significant. Look at the rainfall totals on the European model the next 5 days. Watch this swath develop back down towards the Yucatan. Through Saturday, it hasn't shifted very far off towards the east. So now this envelope of very heavy rain as this broad area of disturbance begins to develop and that cold front sinks down is really from the southern sides of the United States, but minus southern Florida as of yet, but then all the way back down through the central Gulf and into the Yucatan, spreading back down to some of our lower latitudes. Decent rainfall totals for portions of the greater Antilles, and eventually the peninsula of Florida will get onto the act. Central and North Florida could see some heavier rain between now and let's say Thursday or Friday, and then South Florida, that rain is going to be coming. So that's the next weather headline for you guys, is that we've got an extremely wet pattern developing in this area. Showed you the European model rainfall totals. If we take a look at the GFS model here, and again, over the same time frame, just through the 30th, you can see that the GFS model has also begun to develop some of the most persistent, heavier rain a little bit farther off to the west than what it did late last week. So I think what this shows is that it's still going to be quite weak and broad. If anything tries to spin up even at the mid-levels in the northwest sides of the Caribbean, but that also means that there's a larger rain field associated with this. So again, through portions of the central sides of the Gulf, you could have several inches of rain. Same situation developing across portions of Mexico. Even the Merida area could see a few inches of rain and break the heat there. And I do expect all of this to eventually push up to the north and to the east. But even between now and then, we're likely to still have a few inches of rain developing towards Miami, Cuba, Havana, Cienfuegos, Matanzas could be quite wet. Same situation for the central and the northern sides of the area. If I take this and I just extend it out a little bit further for you guys, so I go out the first few days of June, you'll see what I'm talking about. Watch that this bullseye just develops. And I'm talking about a bullseye of over a foot of rain through portions of Cuba, and then 4, 5, 6+ inches of rain through portions of the central sides of the Bahamas. So taking the moisture transport and feeding it up through here, Key West, The Keys themselves, 4 or 5 inches of rain. Same thing for Miami. These are areas that are drought stricken, so the rain is beneficial, but obviously the opportunity comes with the potential for some kind of tropical development in this area. But at this point in time, I do expect it to be on the weaker side. So just breaking it down again, what I expect us to see: scattered showers and storms will continue through portions of the eastern side of the Antilles. Rain and storms are really breaking out right now in advance of everything. It's going to get wetter in the Northwest Caribbean, and that trend will just continue. And eventually it all pushes up to the north and to the east. Obviously, I'm going to be monitoring the situation for you guys all week long. The latest as we get into the forecast for tomorrow. You got a question, feel free to drop it in the comments section below. I do appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, by the way, for liking and subscribing to the channel. If you haven't, hit that subscribe button for me. Appreciate our 70,000 plus subscribers. Thank you to all of our members. I'll keep you up to date with the latest tomorrow. Until then, take care. I'll see you soon.